But you were adamant about schema. You know, you weren't having it. You just wasn't having it, and you took a lot of flack about this on Edward's show and in general. But what what do we know? Href did one of their big studies, and I think it's seen. You know, a Href deep report is seen as a gold report, really. So they did, because they're pretty good, their studies, and they've released a recent study, and it looks pretty like you were right. So what, you know, what can we gel from the AREF study, David?
I think Ahrefs of all of the SEO tools, they put out the best quality in terms of like understanding data and making synopsis. I think some of the rest just they're lost in terms of the data they're trying to pull out and the reasoning behind it. And I just want to say I wasn't trying to be right.
No, you weren't. No, I was
I
just pumping you up. I
sure. No,
was.
I appreciate it. I did take a lot of heat on Reddit.
Well, you really did, didn't you? Because
I
they
did.
weren't having it. A lot of
Yeah,
people, weren't
yeah.
they?
We bought a lot of After Sun gel from CVS last week. But basically, there's a lot of reliance on schema and there's a lot of pumping up of schema. And it's just such a basic markup language. It lacks third-party credibility. And I think I was speaking to a CMO friend of mine this morning, and she was saying, well, it's something we feel like we have control over. And I'm like, that's exactly why Google doesn't, it doesn't really put a lot of emphasis on it. I mean, yes, if you want to post jobs, flights, hotel,
Yeah.
hotel information, certain things like that, merchant center stuff, yeah, you need schema, right?
What about e-commerce?
To a degree, right? I think
Yeah.
a lot of merchant center relies on it. To be honest, I don't do any e-commerce work. I work with SaaS, fintech, um, and anytime I look at merchant center, it's just
Crazy semi-hosting agency people.
it's just become another world, right? And
Right.
but the thing about schema is that with LLMs, they don't need schema, right? It makes no sense that to give the whole HTML document to something that's burning up tokens, right? Like I've got pages on my website that maybe contain 150 words that Bing says is 250,000 bytes in or even 2 megabytes of HTML space. Why give, words are the easiest thing to store. Images, 4K video, they take a lot of disk space, right? But 150 words shouldn't take much more than 160 bytes to store. So if you've got a 20 meg HTML file, why give all of that HTML language and open graph and markup and markdown and CSS to an LLM to get, to synthesize? It makes no sense, right? And it's not that I discovered it. There were a lot of other smart people, Mark Williams Cook and Smarty, who went and put schema into pages and made up their own schema, and they noticed it was getting stripped. A lot of people have said that it makes no sense because it's not going to survive tokenization, the process of turning words into numerical representatives. Um, and also, why would Google go from not trusting you and requiring third-party validation to, oh, well, you've got schema, therefore I must trust you, right? It doesn't make any sense. But again, if you want to build an SEO framework or geo framework where you think the publisher tells Google what to do, maybe that makes sense, I guess. But when the study came out, I was like, that makes sense to me. That's how can LLMs crawl the whole web and then discount everything that doesn't have schema? If that was the case, then any pages we built that didn't have schema, then they shouldn't rank, right? We're not the only people trying to rank in SaaS or SEO, right? There are lots of agencies in New York that do SEO and espouse using schema all the time. Um, so we have clients that are in very competitive markets with both new startups and big billion-dollar heavyweights. As people say, it takes 5 seconds, maybe 5 minutes to put in schema. Then none of our pages for the last 10 years would be ranking. But that's not what we're observing. And I made the mistake one day of posting a page for a microsite It was maybe 30 pages, had maybe 20 backlinks. I don't know how SEMrush got to the view that it did, that it had 19,000 SERP features, but it had 19,000 SERP features. And I said, look, this microsite has no schema in it at all, but it's managed to get 19,000 SERP phases. Someone said to me on Reddit, what has schema done to hurt you? And I'm like, nothing. I'm not anti-schema. This isn't a political faction, as far as I know. And people got very angry about it, really irate. You know, one person who's been trying to flame me for years on Reddit wrote a whole diatribe of conjecture, and you know, this person's really made me emotionally upset. And that wasn't the point. The point was to say, look, I don't think Google trusts schema, and I don't think LLMs seek out pages of schema, and I don't know why they would. You know, it's kind of like saying that,
Well, I think the whole AI and large learning models has put kind of gasoline on the fire, but it was all out there before
yeah,
this technology. You know, there was people that pushing it hard, weren't they?
Google
Before,
deprecated FAQ schema 6 years ago, 7
yeah,
years ago. I never used it. I've always used schema to build authority, which has always meant building individual FAQs, and this is something we're trying on your site now, right?
yeah.
Which I think has already started to turn things around quite quickly. And I've never had to use schema, and also not having schema has never held me back. So if people want to put schema in a page and go, ta-da, it was the schema, that's fine. I'm not stopping anyone from doing it. I'm just pointing out that you don't need it.